Broadfield House, History and Memories. Broadfield House is a Georgian mansion built in the early 1800s. It is situated on what was once the main London to Brighton road, just south of Crawley in Sussex. I lived in a cottage on the Broadfield estate with my parents and 3 siblings. My father was caretaker and head gardener there from 1946 to 1979. We children enjoyed playing in the beautiful gardens and woods, fishing in the lake and going in the house with our father when he made his security checks. We especially loved exploring the dark cellars where wine was once stored. Many famous families lived in Broadfield House over the years, including the Viner brothers, who owned coffee plantations in Ceylon in the mid-1800s, and the Sandymans of Port fame. There is a family connection to one of the more infamous people who used to frequent the house. John Haig, the acid bath murderer, called there with his friend Dr. Henderson one night in 1948. The house had recently closed down as a country club, ready to become the headquarters for Crawley Newtown architects, and my parents were resident caretakers in Broadfield House at the time. I never tired of hearing the story of the encounter from my father. You can read his own account of this in my book. My father was later interviewed by the police when they were investigating the Haig murders. He had been one of the last people to see Henderson alive. Henderson was probably murdered in Haig's workshop in Leopold Road in Crawley that very night. Shortly afterwards, Haig also murdered Henderson's wife. Like the rest of his victims, her body was disposed of in a vat of acid. My research threw up a previously unknown story about another infamous character with connections to Broadfield House, the forger Henry Fauntleroy, who was hanged for his crimes in 1824. He was a close friend of residents James and Anne Cuthro Disney and stayed there many times. Shortly after his death, details of an affair between him and Anne came to light and were the subject of various newspaper articles. My book concludes with our own family's memories of growing up on the estate in the shadow of this once fine mansion. I find it hard returning to Broadfield, as I always end up in tears when I see how the once beautiful estate has changed. Most of the woods, fields and gardens have disappeared, and the house appears a shadow of its former self. I wrote this book to keep its beauty alive, principally for my family and descendants, but also for those newcomers to Crawley who might be interested in finding out more about Broadfield as it was and sharing our memories. Here is a poem I've written. How it was. We lived in a cottage with flowers, with trees, with birdsong. From my bedroom window, fields in every direction. In summer, studded with buttercup gold. In winter, silvered with frost. Sometimes there was snow, so deep, like the winter of '63, when we were snowmen following the deer and fox tracks through the woods for miles and miles. The gardens burst with harvests, carrots, beetroot, cabbages, and in the orchard cherry, plum and apple trees. Hedgerows thrummed with bees and spangled with ladles of Mum's blackberry jam. But one morning machines appeared. Metal jaws shredded roots. Bluebells, daffodils or wild orchids. They devoured a field, trees, our gardens. Rabbits and foxes took flight. We had to leave. Our cottage was pulled down stone by stone, and from a concrete ocean rose blank new homes. From each home a family. They will never know the names of the trees. They will never know the names of the flowers. They trample over the nightingale's song. They trample over my heart.